We like to believe that we have mapped the entire world. We tell ourselves that there are no more shadows left for monsters to hide in. We have categorized our fears into safe, manageable boxers. The vampire, the werewolf, the zombie. Creatures that have become so familiar, they are almost comforting. But history is deep, and the memory of mankind is old. Buried beneath the popular legends lie the others. The creatures that our ancestors were too terrified to even whisper about. The ones that don't just kill you, but dismantle your sanity. From the skinless demons of the Scottish coast to the shapeshifters of the Slavic forests, these are not movie monsters. These are the manifestations of our rawest, most primal terrors. Turn off the lights. Lock your doors. It is time to meet the things that history tried to forget. The journey into the unknown begins not in a dark forest or a deep ocean, but in the one place you believe you are safest. Your own bed. We spend 1/3 of our lives asleep, vulnerable, unconscious, and utterly defenseless. It is in this state of suspended reality that our first monster resides. While modern science attempts to explain the phenomenon of sleep paralysis as a misfiring of neurons, the Germanic people of the Middle Ages knew better. They knew it was not a medical condition. It was a visitation. They called him the Alp. In the vast library of folklore, the Alp is often unfairly compared to the vampire, but this comparison does a disservice to the unique terror the LAP represents. A vampire drains your blood, an ILP drains your spirit. Originating from German folklore, the LAP is a malevolent entity, a shape-shifting demon that is inextricably linked to the night. Unlike other monsters that hunt physically, the LOP engages in psychological warfare. He waits until the precise moment you drift into the heavy, paralyzed state of REM sleep. Legend says the ALP wears a hat known as a tarn cap, which grants him the power of invisibility. He enters the home silently, often in the form of a cat, a pig, or a black dog, slipping through the keyhole or riding in on the moonlight. But once inside the bedroom, he sheds his disguise and resumes his true form, often described as a twisted, goblin-like creature. He does not bite your neck. Instead, he climbs onto your chest. He sits there, a heavy, crushing weight pressing down on your lungs, slowly suffocating you while you lie awake, paralyzed, unable to scream, unable to move a single finger. This is the true origin of the word nightmare. In German, the word is Nachtmar, literally. The nightmare, or the night goblin. The pressure you feel during a nightmare, that terrifying inability to breathe, was believed to be the physical weight of the ALP sitting upon you. But the ALP does not just sit while you are trapped in that space between waking and dreaming. He forces terrifying visions into your mind. He drinks the panic from your sweat. In some horrific accounts, the ALP would even extend a long, serpent-like tongue to feed on the breast milk of nursing mothers, or, more disturbingly, the blood of men, but always in a way that left no physical mark, only a profound, exhausting emptiness come morning. What makes the ALP truly terrifying is his connection to the community. Folklore suggests that the ALP is not always a demon from hell, but sometimes a living human neighbor or a stranger whose soul leaves their body at night to torment others. This added a layer of paranoia to medieval villages. Anyone with a unibrow, known as eyebrows, that meet in the middle was often suspected of being an ALP in disguise. The fear was so pervasive that people developed complex rituals to stop him. They would place shoes at the end of the bed, with the toes pointing toward the door, or sleep with a steel knife under the pillow, hoping the cold iron would repel the spirit. The ALP represents the violation of our sanctuary. He proves that locked doors cannot protect us, because the true danger comes when we close our eyes. He is the ancient explanation for why we wake up screaming, the personification of helplessness. And while we may have modern names for these nocturnal terrors today, the feeling remains exactly the same as it did 1,000 years ago. The undeniable sensation that we are not alone in the dark, and that something heavy is waiting for us to fall asleep. As we leave the safety of the bedroom, we realize that the home itself has other guardians, spirits that are meant to protect us, but possess a temper that can turn deadly in an instant. If the ALP is the terror of the bedroom, then our next entity is the terror of the waking life. In the modern world, we view our homes as static objects: wood, brick, and glass. We buy them, we sell them, and we believe we own them. But in the frozen vastness of Slavic history and the rural villages of Russia, Ukraine, and Poland, a house was not a thing you owned. It was a territory you shared, and you were never the most powerful thing living there. Deep in Slavic folklore lies the legend of the domovoi. To call him a monster is perhaps too simple. He is something far more complex and unsettling. A household god who has been demoted to a roommate. He is the personification of the house itself. The descriptions of the domovoi vary, but he is almost always depicted as a small, elderly man, no taller than a child, but possessing the weathered face of an ancient ancestor. He is covered in thick hair, often mirroring the fur of the family dog or cat, and he possesses eyes that glow like dying embers in the dark. He does not live in the attic or the basement. He lives in the heart of the home, behind the great stove or under the threshold of the door. He is always watching. The relationship between a family and their domovoi is not one of hunter and prey, but of a master and a servant, though it is often unclear which is which. In a happy home, the domovoi is a guardian. He is the invisible hand that keeps the fire lit during the brutal winters. He is the shadow that rocks the cradle when the mother is too exhausted to move. It is said that if you treat him well, leaving him bowls of milk, porridge, or tobacco, he will protect your livestock and ward off other, darker spirits. But this symbiotic relationship hangs by a thread. The domovoi is a creature of strict order. He demands cleanliness, respect, and tradition. If the family becomes lazy, if the house becomes filthy, or if the members of the household begin to fight and scream at one another, the domovoi transforms. This is where the legend becomes the blueprint for what we now call poltergeist activity. A disgruntled domovoi does not leave. He enacts punishment. It begins with small cruelties. Objects go missing, only to appear in impossible places. Plates are smashed in empty rooms. The sound of heavy, small footsteps echoes in the hallway at night. But if the disrespect continues, the violence escalates. There are chilling accounts from the 19th century of families waking up covered in bruises, pinched black and blue by invisible fingers while they slept. The domovoi is known to drag people out of their beds by their hair. He has a particular disdain for sloppy work. He has been known to tangle the manes of horses into impossible knots or suffocate chickens in the coop, snapping their necks one by one as a message to the farmer. But the most terrifying aspect of the domovoi is his role as an oracle of doom. He is physically affectionate, but his touch is a forecast of your fate. Legend says that in the middle of the night, you might feel a hand gently stroking your face. If the hand feels soft and warm, it means good fortune is coming. But if you wake up to feel a cold, bristly, hair-covered hand touching your skin, it is a death sentence. It means that someone in the house will die before the snow melts. The horror of the domovoi lies in his proximity. You cannot run away from him because he is the house. You cannot lock him out because he is already inside. He represents the crushing weight of domestic expectations, the idea that your home is judging you, watching your failures, and punishing your negligence. We like to think that when we lock our front doors, we are shutting the world out. But the legend of the domovoi reminds us of a much more uncomfortable truth. We are locked in, and the walls are listening. The creaking of the floorboards is not the wind. It is the real master of the house, pacing in the dark, deciding if you have earned the right to sleep peacefully tonight, or if you need to be taught a painful lesson in respect. We leave the frozen plains of Russia and travel east to a land often associated with honor, beauty, and spiritual tranquility. Japan. But beneath the serene surface of Zen gardens and tea ceremonies, Japanese folklore hides some of the most grotesque creatures in human history. Here, the boundaries between the living and the dead are thin, and hunger is not just a physical feeling, it is an eternal curse. In the West, we have the zombie, a mindless, rotting corpse that shuffles forward, driven by a simple biological need. But Japan offers us something far more terrifying because it possesses something zombies do not: intelligence and shame. This is the legend of the word jikininki translates roughly to humanity ghosts. In the cosmology of Japanese Buddhism, they are a specific class of geichi, or hungry ghosts. But unlike the ethereal spirits that float through walls, the jikininki is a corporeal nightmare. They are the cursed spirits of individuals who, in life, were consumed by greed, selfishness, or they may have been corrupt priests who stole money meant for the poor, or merchants who hoarded food while their neighbors starved. When Te died, the cosmos decided that their punishment should mirror their crime. They consumed everything in life. So in death, they are condemned to consume the most vile thing imaginable: the rotting flesh of the dead. The true horror of the jikininki lies in their camouflage. In many stories, they do not look like monsters at first glance. During the day, a jikininki they can appear as normal human beings, often taking the form of a solitary priest, a lonely widow, or a weary They live in rundown temples or isolated huts near villages. They walk among the living, speak with them, and perhaps even share tea with them. But they are hiding a terrible secret. When the sun sets and the disguise falls away, the true form is revealed. The jikininki is described as a monstrous, cadaverous figure. Their skin is peeling and gray, covered in blisters and sores. Their muscle is wasted away, revealing sharp bones, and their eyes glow with a feral, red luminescence. Their hands end in razor-sharp claws, designed for one specific purpose: stripping meat from bone. They do not hunt the living. That would be too easy. Instead, they haunt the places of the dead. They lurk in graveyards and funeral processions, waiting for the mourners to leave. Once the coast is clear, they descend upon the fresh graves. With terrifying speed, they dig up the bodies and feast. They devour everything flesh, hair, and bone, leaving nothing behind but a desecrated emptiness. But here's the twist that elevates the jikininki from a simple monster to a tragic horror. They are conscious. They retain the memories of their human lives. They know that what they are doing is an abomination. While a zombie eats without thought, the jikininki eats with self-loathing. They are disgusted by the taste of rotting flesh, yet they are compelled by a supernatural hunger that can never be sated. They cry and wail while they feast, lamenting their fate, hating their existence, but unable to stop. There is a famous story from the work of Lafcadio Hearn involving a traveling monk named Muso Kushi. He stays the night in a village where the headman has just died. The villagers, following local custom, flee the house to leave the corpse alone for the night, warning the monk to do the same. Muso, being brave, stays to pray for the dead man's soul. In the dead of night, he witnesses a shapeless, colossal shadow enter the room and devour the corpse. The next morning, he discovers that the priest who directed him to the village was actually the jikininki itself, the ghost of the former priest who confessed that his greed in life had doomed him to eat the bodies of his own parishioners for eternity. The jikininki serves as a gruesome reminder of the consequences of our actions. It suggests that the monsters we fear are not external beasts, but the manifestations of our own internal corruption. The greedy neighbor, the selfish leader, the hoarders of wealth, they are already monsters on the inside. Death simply turns them inside out, revealing to the world what they truly are: scavengers who feed on the suffering of others, forever hungry and forever alone in the dark. We have survived the terrors of the home. We have escaped the crushing weight of the ALP in the bedroom, the judgment of the domovoi in the kitchen, and the hunger of the jikininki in the graveyard. But as we step outside the village gates, we enter a new domain of fear. For the ancients, the forest was not a place of leisure or hiking. It was a kingdom that did not belong to humans. It was a vast green ocean of silence, where people simply vanished. And the ruler of this kingdom was the Leshi. In Slavic folklore, the Leshi is the lord of the forest. He is not a demon, nor is he a ghost. He is the physical manifestation of the woods itself. And like the woods, he is beautiful, ancient, and profoundly dangerous. The terrifying nature of the Leshi lies in his ambiguity. He is a shapeshifter of the highest order. When he walks among the tall pine trees, he can grow to the size of a giant, his head brushing the clouds. But when he steps into a meadow, he can shrink himself down to the height of a single blade of grass, hiding in plain sight. If you were to see him in his true form, he appears almost human, but everything is slightly wrong. This is the ancient origin of the uncanny valley effect. He might look like a peasant, but his skin is as pale as bark, and his hair and beard are made of living vines and grass. His eyes are described as two pale stars that never blink. But the telltale sign is his clothes. The Leshy wears his kaftan backward, and his shoes are always on the wrong feet. It is a visual signal that he operates by a reversed logic, a set of rules that are alien to human understanding. The Leshy does not hunt you with claws or teeth. He hunts you with your own mind. He is the master of mimicry. Imagine you are walking through the woods, gathering mushrooms or firewood. Suddenly, you hear a voice. It is the voice of your wife, your child, or your best friend calling out to you in distress. Help me, over here. The sound is perfect. It carries the exact cadence and emotion of the person you love. Instinctively, you run toward it. You step off the path. This is the mistake. The moment you leave the beaten path, the Leshy has you. The voice keeps moving, always just a few yards ahead, behind a thicket or over the next hill. You keep following, deeper and deeper into the wilderness. And then, suddenly, the voice stops. You look around, and you realize the trees have changed. The path is gone. The sun is in the wrong place. You have been in The Leshy loves to confuse travelers, removing road signs or changing the landscape so that you walk in endless, maddening circles until you collapse from exhaustion or starve to death. In some stories, he doesn't even kill you. He simply laughs. To the Leshy, a human dying of exposure is a game. He is known to tickle his victims to death, a bizarre and horrifying detail that emphasizes his chaotic nature. He kills, not out of malice, but out of a twisted sense of amusement. However, the Leshy is not purely evil. He is a guardian. He protects the bears and the wolves. He punishes those who cut down trees without asking, or those who hunt for sport rather than survival. Woodcutters in ancient Russia would often leave offerings of bread, salt, and even pancakes on tree stumps before entering the woods, praying for safe passage. They knew that they were guests in his house. The legend of the Leshy taps into a very specific, primal fear. The fear of getting lost. It is the realization that nature is not your friend. The trees do not care if you live or die. The forest is a labyrinth. And without the protection of civilization, we are nothing more than There was a belief that if you realized you were being led astray by a Leshy, there was only one way to break the spell. You had to stop, take off all your clothes, turn them inside out, and put them back on backward. You had to put your left shoe on your right foot. You had to become like him, chaotic, reversed, and wild. Only by embracing the madness of the forest could you hope to find your way back to the sanity of the village. But for many, that realization came too late. They followed the voice of a loved one into the dark, and all that was ever found were their bones, picked clean, deep in the heart of the woods. The Leshy lures us with the voices of those we love, using confusion as a weapon. But in the deep, mist-covered forests of Scandinavia, Norway, and Sweden there lives a predator that uses a much simpler, yet infinitely more effective lure: desire. Imagine a charcoal burner or a lonely hunter working deep in the woods. He has not seen another human face for weeks. The isolation is gnawing at his mind. Then, through the gray mist, he sees her. A woman. She is breathtakingly beautiful, with long, golden hair that falls down to her waist and eyes that sparkle like mountain streams. She steps out from behind a pine tree, smiling at him. She offers him food, or drink, or simply the warmth of her company. This is the huldra, and she is the ultimate test of a man's perception. In Norse folklore, the huldra, or the skogsers in Sweden, is a forest spirit who presents herself as the perfect woman. She is kind, attentive, and incredibly seductive. She approaches lonely men with a proposition of marriage or intimacy. For a man starving for affection in the brutal cold of the north, she seems like a miracle, a blessing from the gods. But this beauty is a thin veneer over a horrifying reality. The huldra is flawed in one specific, grotesque way. If the man were to look closely, if he could tear his eyes away from her face and look at her back, he would see the truth. From behind, the huldra is not human. In some legends, she has the tail of a cow or a fox poking out from beneath her skirt, which she constantly tries to hide. But in the darker, more unsettling versions of the myth, she has no back at all. From behind, she is hollow, Her back looks like a rotting, hollowed-out tree trunk, covered in bark and moss. Or worse, it is an open cavity, revealing the absence of internal organs, just a dark, empty shell masquerading as a person. This imagery, the Hollow Woman, is one of the most potent symbols in folklore. It represents the idea that the beauty of the wild is superficial. The forest looks inviting, lush, and romantic from the outside. But if you turn it around, if you get too close, it is empty, cold, and devoid of humanity. The danger of the huldra is not that she kills you instantly, it is that she steals your life slowly. If a man is seduced by her and goes with her into the mountains, he is rarely seen again. He becomes Bergatagan. Taken into the mountain, if he does manage to return years later, he is a broken shell of a man. He forgets his family, his language, and his god. He becomes silent, staring into the distance, forever longing for the inhuman beauty he left behind. However, the huldra is not always a villain. She is a tragic figure. In many stories, she desperately wants to be human. She wants a soul. Legend says that if a man can see her tail or her hollow back and not recoil in horror, he can treat her with genuine kindness and merry. Harenachurshi will lose her tail and become a human woman. But this comes with a catch. The huldra never loses her immense, inhuman strength. There is a famous folk tale of a man who married a huldra. One day, he tried to beat her in an argument. The huldra, losing her patience, picked up a glowing red-hot horseshoe from the forge with her bare hands and bent it straight. She looked at her husband and said, "I could have done this to you at any moment, but I chose to love you instead." The husband never argued with her again. The huldra serves as a warning about the dangers of lust and the deception of appearances. She is the embodiment of the forests, seduction promising warmth and love, but often delivering only madness and entrapment. She reminds the lonely traveler that just because something looks beautiful, it doesn't mean it is whole. And sometimes, the things we desire most are simply hollow shells waiting to swallow us alive. As we leave the forests behind, the ground begins to soften. The trees give way to rocky cliffs and crashing waves. We are moving from the earth to the water, and in the cold, dark oceans of the north, there are things far worse than hollow women waiting for us. Things that do not want to marry us, but to unmake us. We leave the deceptive beauty of the Scandinavian forests and cross the North Sea to the jagged, wind-battered coast of the Orkney Islands in Scotland. Here, the folklore changes. The monsters are not seductive. They are not tricksters. In a land where the sea is constantly trying to drown the land, the monsters are brutal, ugly, and relentlessly cruel. And sitting upon the throne of this nightmare kingdom is a creature widely considered to be the most horrifying demon in all of Scottish mythology. The mythological hybrids, like the centaur or the mermaid, have a certain elegance to them. The Nuckelavee does not. It is an abomination of anatomy, a mistake of creation that should not exist. Imagine walking along a desolate beach path at twilight. You smell the stench of burning sulfur and rotting kelp. Then, you see a shape emerge from the surf. At first glance, it looks like a rider on a horse, but as it steps onto the sand, the horrific reality becomes clear. The rider is not sitting on the horse, he is fused to it. The torso of a man grows directly out of the horse's back. But that is not the worst part. The true horror of the Nuckelavee is that it has no skin. Every inch of this colossal beast is raw, exposed muscle. You can see the thick, yellow veins pulsing with black blood. You can see the white tendons stretching and snapping as the creature moves. It is a walking open wound, glistening with slime and seawater. The human head is enormous, wobbling on a neck too weak to support it, while the horse's head features a gaping mouth that exhales a toxic black vapor and a single burning red eye that scans the horizon for victims. Its arms are grotesquely long, dragging on the ground like anchors, fingers twitching as they reach for anything living. The Nuckelavee is a demon of pure malevolence. Unlike the Leishi or the domovoi, who can be bargained with, the Nuckelavee has no redeeming qualities. It hates mankind with a burning passion. It hates the land. It blames the islanders for burning seaweed an ancient industry in Orkney to make soda ash, the smoke of which enrages the beast, driving it into a frenzy of destruction. It does not just kill individuals, it kills the island itself. The breath of the Nuckelavee is a biological weapon. Where it breathes, crops wither and die instantly. Cattle fall sick with a wasting disease known as mortasheen. A single visit from the Nuckelavee can cause a famine that wipes out an entire village. It represents the ultimate fear of the islander, the idea that the ocean can simply come ashore and take away your ability to survive. If you are unfortunate enough to encounter the Nuckelavee, running is almost futile. It moves with unnatural speed, its skinless muscles driving it forward like an engine of pain. However, like many elementals, it has a fatal weakness: a rule it cannot break. The Nuckelavee is a creature of the salt sea. It cannot tolerate fresh water. In the old tales, the only hope for a traveler chased by this beast is to find a stream, a river, or a loch. If you can cross running fresh water, the Nuckelavee is forced to stop. It will stand on the other bank, screaming in frustration, its skinless body vibrating with rage, but it cannot cross the barrier. The rain is its enemy. The river is its cage. This vulnerability tells us something profound about the psyche of the people who created this myth. Living on small islands, surrounded by a violent, dark ocean, the sea was death. But the rain, the fresh water that filled the wells and watered the crops, was life. The Nuckelavee is the embodiment of the salt water that corrodes, kills, and destroys. It is a monster that wears its suffering on the outside, a skinless nightmare that reminds us that nature is not always a mother. Sometimes nature is a butcher, and we are just the meat waiting to be harvested. From the stormy coasts of Scotland, we travel further north, crossing the line into a world where the sun can disappear for months at a time. We arrive in the Arctic Circle, the ancestral home of the Inuit people. Here, the landscape is not made of earth and stone, but of snow and ice. It is a place of breathtaking, silent beauty. But in this vast whiteness, silence is not always peaceful. Sometimes, it is a trap. In a climate where falling into the water means death in less than 3 minutes, the ocean is not just a resource, it is a predator. And the personification of that cold, watery death is the Kalupalik is one of the most unique and disturbing boogeymen in human history because she distorts the most comforting image known to mankind. The mother in Inuit folklore, she is described as a humanoid creature with long, wild hair and skin that is green and bloated, like a drowning victim that has been in the water too long. Her fingernails are long and jagged, perfect for gripping the slippery edges of the ice. But her most defining feature is her clothing. She wears an amatika, traditional Inuit parka made of eider duck skin. The amatik is designed with a large pouch in the hood to carry a baby against the mother's back, keeping the child warm and safe from the freezing winds. It is a symbol of maternal love and protection. But on the Kalupalik, this pouch is not a cradle. It is a cage. The Kalupali lives beneath the sea ice. She swims in the freezing black waters, looking up at the bottom of the ice sheet, searching for shadows. She is hunting for children. Specifically, children who disobey their parents and play too close to the water's edge or near dangerous cracks in the ice. She does not hunt with a roar or a scream. She hunts with a sound that is much more unsettling. Elders say that if you are standing on the ice and you hear a distinct low humming sound, hum coming from beneath your feet, it is already too late. She is right below you. When a child wanders too close to the edge, the Kaluplit bursts from the water. With terrifying strength, she grabs the child and stuffs them into the pouch of her parka. Then, she dives back down into the abyss. The horror of the Kalupalik lies in the fate of her victims. In most monster stories, the victim is eaten or killed, but the Kalupalik is different. She keeps the children. Legends say that the children trapped in her pouch do not die immediately. The amatik is magical. It preserves them. They are carried down into the depths, kept in a state of suspended animation, forever cold, forever wet, and forever awake in the darkness. As she swims through the silent ocean, the child is trapped against her slimy, green back, conscious but unable to move, unable to scream, and unable to age. They become her secret family, frozen in time beneath the world. Some stories suggest that a brave hunter or a desperate father can bargain with the Kalupalik to get a child back. But the price is always high. She demands something of equal value, and rarely does anyone win a negotiation with the sea. Anthropologically, the Kalupalik is a brilliant survival mechanism. In the harsh environment of the Arctic, a child wandering off is a death sentence. Parents created a monster that was so terrifying, so vivid, and so specific to the environment that it kept children safe. The fear of the green hand reaching out of the water saved countless lives. But even knowing the function of the myth does not make it less scary. The Kalupalik taps into the primal fear of the void beneath our feet. It reminds us that the ice we walk on is fragile. We build our lives on a thin crust of safety. But just inches below us waits a freezing, indifferent darkness that is humming a soft tune, waiting for us to slip. We have traveled from the frozen Arctic to the bottom of the world to the vast, ancient continent of Australia. This is a land of extremes, where the sun burns the earth red and the wilderness feels older than humanity itself. In the Aboriginal Dreamtime, the stories of creation and destruction are woven into the landscape, but hidden in the murky billabongs, creeks, and swamps of the outback lies a creature that terrified both the Indigenous people and the early European settlers equally. They call it the bunyip, and its name translates roughly to devil or evil spirit. Unlike the specific descriptions of the Nuckelavee or the Kalup, the bunyip is terrifying because it defies a single form. It is a biological puzzle. Over thousands of years, witnesses have described it in wildly different ways. Some say it looks like a giant starfish that walks on land. Others describe it as a dog-faced seal with tusks like a walrus. Some claim it is a long-necked reptile resembling a prehistoric dinosaur, while others swear it is a shaggy beast with flippers and a horse's tail. This inconsistency is not a sign of myth. It is a sign of something far more unsettling. It suggests a creature that is so old, or so elusive, that human language struggles to categorize it. It is a remnant of a time when megafauna ruled the earth, giant marsupials and reptiles that should be extinct. But perhaps, in the deep mud of the unexplored swamps, refused to die. But while the visual descriptions vary, there is one thing that every story agrees on: the sound. The bunyip is a master of sonic warfare. It is said to hunt at night, when the moon reflects off the still water of the billabong. The first sign of its presence is the silence. The frogs stop croaking. The insects stop buzzing. And then, a sound tears through the darkness, a booming roar that is often described as a mix between the bellowing of a bull and the scream of a woman. It is a sound so loud and unnatural that it vibrates in your chest, freezing the blood of anyone who hears it. Indigenous tribes warned their children never to go near the water's edge after dark, for the bunyip lies in wait beneath the surface, camouflaged by the muddy water and the reeds. It is an ambush predator. It does not chase, it waits. When an animal or a human comes to drink, the bunyip strikes with lightning speed, dragging its victim into the murky depths. However, the bunyip is not just a mindless eating machine. In many Dreamtime stories, the bunyip is a spirit of punishment. It targets those who disrespect the land or take more than they need. In one famous legend, a man who broke the sacred law by fishing in a forbidden waterhole was pulled under by a bunyip, transforming him into a black swan that was forced to swim the waters forever, never allowed to step on land again. When European settlers arrived in the 19th century, they treated the bunyip not as folklore, but as a zoological fact. They found strange, massive bones in the dried-up lake, beds bones that did not belong to any known animal. Newspapers in the 1840s ran headlines about bunyip sightings, and scientists genuinely believed they were on the verge of discovering a new species of aquatic mammal. But the bunyip was never caught. As the wetlands were drained and the cities expanded, the sightings became fewer. The creature retreated deeper into the shadows of the continent. Today, the bunyip represents the primal fear of the unknown that lurks in the ancient landscape. It is the feeling you get when you are camping by a remote river miles from civilization. You hear a splash in the water that is too heavy to be a fish. You hear a rustle in the reeds that is too deliberate to be the wind. And for a split second, you realize that this land does not belong to you. It belongs to the things that were swimming in the mud long before the first human ever took a breath. As we conclude our journey through the dangers of the wild, the forests, and the waters, we prepare to enter a new phase of horror. The next monsters do not live in the environment. They live inside the human body. We are moving from the external threats to the internal ones. The hunger of the flesh is about to begin. We have faced the monsters of the home, the forest, and the deep ocean. But now, we enter a new phase of terror. These are not monsters that attack us from the outside because we wandered too far. These are monsters that are born from within us. They represent the collapse of our humanity, the breaking of sacred taboos, and the terrifying fragility of the human mind when faced with survival. And there is no creature that embodies this horror more perfectly than the Wendigo. In the modern pop culture of movies and video games, the Wendigo is often depicted as a horned beast, a deer man walking on two legs. But this is a Hollywood invention. The true Wendigo of the Algonquian-speaking peoples of North America is far, far more terrifying because it is not an animal. It is a man. Or rather, it is what a man becomes when he has committed the ultimate sin. To understand the Wendigo, you must understand the winter of the Great Lakes and the Canadian Shield. It is a brutal, unforgiving season. The snow piles high, trapping families in their cabins for months. Game animals disappear. The food stores run out. Starvation sets in. It is in this desperate, freezing isolation that the Wendigo's spirit waits. The legend begins with a desperate choice. A person, maddened by hunger, looks at their family members or their companions, not as loved ones, but as meat. The moment a human being consumes the flesh of another human being to survive, the transformation begins. The spirit of the Wendigo enters them. The physical description of the folklore Wendigo is the stuff of nightmares. It is described as being gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its desiccated skin is pulled tight over its bones, like dried parchment. Its complexion is the gray of death ashes. Its eyes are pushed back deep into their sockets, glowing with a frantic, burning need. Most disturbingly, its lips are tattered and bloodier, missing entirely because, in its insatiable hunger, the Wendigo has chewed them off. It smells of decay and decomposition, surrounding itself with an odor of strangeness and corruption. It is a walking corpse that breathes. But the true horror of the Wendigo is not its appearance, it is its curse. The Wendigo is the spirit of greed and excess. The legend dictates that every time the Wendigo eats a human, it grows in size relative to the meal it just consumed. Therefore, it can never be full. It is eternally starving. The more it eats, the more emaciated it feels. It is a creature of constant, agonizing want, forever hunting, forever screaming into the wind because its stomach is a bottomless pit. For the Indigenous people, the Wendigo was not just a campfire story. It was a very real social danger. Wendigo psychosis is a historical medical term used to describe a culture-bound syndrome where individuals in these harsh climates would develop an intense paranoid fear that they were turning into the monster or actually developing a craving for human flesh, despite having other food available. It was the psychological breaking point of the human mind. The Wendigo is a cautionary tale about the importance of community and the danger of selfishness. In a tribe, sharing food is survival. Hoarding food or consuming the tribe itself is death. The Wendigo represents the icy coldness of a heart that puts its own survival above everything else. It is said that the Wendigo retains a shred of its former human intelligence, which makes it an apex hunter. It can mimic voices, it can unlock doors, but it has no soul. Its heart is literally made of ice, and the only way to kill it is to melt that frozen heart with fire. As we look at this legend, we realize that the Wendigo is not really a monster of the woods. It is a monster of desperation. It is a reminder that the line between a civilized human being and a ravenous beast is much thinner than we like to admit. All it takes is a little too much cold, a little too much hunger, and the terrible decision to cross a line from which there is no return. We move from the frozen starvation of the Canadian wilderness to the wind-swept, blood-soaked hills of the Scottish borders. This is a land defined by centuries of war. For hundreds of years, the border between England and Scotland was a lawless zone, a place of constant raiding, burning, and murder. It is said that the soil here has drunk more blood than water, and it is from this history of relentless violence that our next monster was born. In modern fantasy, Goblins are often depicted as mischievous pests or cannon fodder for heroes, but in the folklore of the borders, there is a goblin that commands pure terror. He is not a thief, he is a butcher. He is known as the Red Cap. If you are hiking through the desolate moors and you come across a ruined castle stones blackened by age, roof collapsed, windows like empty eyes, you might be tempted to go inside for shelter from the biting wind. Specifically, the legends warn against entering the ruins of Hermitage Castle, the guardhouse of the bloodiest valley in Britain. This is the lair of the Red Cap. He is described as a short, thick-set old man, sturdy and gnarled like an ancient tree root. He has long, prominent teeth that protrude from his mouth, fingers that end in talons like an eagle, and large, burning red eyes. But the first thing you will notice is the sound. The Red Cap wears heavy iron boots. Despite his small size, he moves with terrifying speed, but he cannot move silently. The sound of metal clanging against the stone floor clanking through the empty halls of the ruin is the signal that you are not alone. In his hand, he carries a pike staff, a long, iron-tipped spear. But his most defining feature, and the source of his name, is the hat he wears. It is a simple cap, dyed a deep, wet crimson. The horror of the Red Cap lies in the maintenance of that hat. It is not dyed with fabric dye, it is dyed with human blood. Unlike the Wendigo, who kills to satiate a hunger for meat, the Red Cap kills to sustain his very existence. He operates on a gruesome biological timer. The legend states that his cap must always be kept wet with fresh human blood. If the blood on his cap were ever to dry out completely, the Red Cap would wither away and die. This mechanic creates a monster of desperate, relentless aggression. He does not kill for sport or territory. He kills because he is constantly fighting against the clock. Every moment that passes, his life force evaporates. This makes him exceptionally cruel. When he catches a traveler seeking refuge in his ruins, he does not hesitate. He strikes with his iron pike, dips his cap in the resulting pool of vitality, and refreshes his lease on life. The Red Cap is difficult to fight. Despite his elderly appearance, he possesses supernatural strength, capable of overpowering a grown man with ease. His iron boots allow him to kick with bone-shattering force. Ordinary weapons are said to be useless against him. A sword simply bounces off his leathery skin. However, like many creatures of the darkest folklore, he is bound by the old laws of the sacred. The people of the borders believed that the only way to drive back a Red Cap was by reciting scripture or holding up a cross. Upon hearing the words of God, the creature would let out a shriek of pain, leaving behind one of his long teeth as he vanished into a ball of flame or smoke. The Red Cap serves as a dark memory of the region's history. In a time when border reavers raiders would burn down homes and kill families without a second thought, the Red Cap was the supernatural manifestation of that senseless brutality. He is a reminder that violence leaves a stain on the land. He suggests that in places where great atrocities have happened, the violence doesn't just go away. It lingers. It takes form. It puts on a pair of iron boots and waits in the shadows for the next drop of blood to fall. As we continue our exploration of the hunger of the flesh, we leave the cold stone castles of Scotland and travel to the tropical heat of Southeast Asia. Here, the monsters do not just wear clothes dipped in blood. They have the ability to tear their own bodies apart to hunt you. We leave the blood-soaked ruins of Scotland and travel halfway across the globe to the humid, dense jungles of the Philippines. Here, the horror is not about cold or isolation. It is about intimacy and violation. In the small villages, or barrios, the houses are often built close together. Neighbors know each other by name, and the walls are thin. But in Philippine folklore, the most terrifying monster is not a stranger lurking in the woods. It is the beautiful woman living right next door. Enter the Mananing. The name itself is derived from the Tagalog word tangle, which means to remove or to separate. And this name describes one of the most gruesome biological mechanisms in all of global mythology. During the day, the Manananggal appears as a human woman. She is often described as exceptionally beautiful, quiet, and unassuming. She walks among the villagers, buys food at the market, and smiles at the children. She is the perfect camouflage, but when the sun sets and the moon is full, she undergoes a transformation that defies all laws of anatomy. She retreats to a secluded spot, perhaps a clearing in the woods or a dark room in her house. She begins to anoint her body with a special oil. Then, the horror begins. Her body shudders violently. With a sickening sound of tearing cartilage and snapping bone, she separates her torso from her hips. The lower half of her body, her legs and pelvis, remain standing, motionless and useless in the dark. But the upper half changes. Enormous, bat-like wings sprout from her back. Her teeth sharpen into needles, and with her intestines and internal organs dangling from her severed waist, trailing behind her like a gruesome tail, she takes flight into the night sky. The Manananggal is a predator of the most vulnerable. She does not hunt warriors or men. She hunts pregnant women. She flies silently over the village, landing on the thatched roofs of houses where an expectant mother sleeps. She does not need to enter the room. She uses a long, hollow, thread-like tunga probasi switch. She slides through the cracks in the ceiling or the roof tiles. This tongue is incredibly strong and flexible. It descends into the room, finds the sleeping mother, and pierces her abdomen. The Manananggal feeds on the heart of the fetus, draining the life of the unborn child while the mother sleeps undisturbed, only to wake up to a tragedy. It is a monster that represents the ultimate violation of the home and the sanctity of motherhood. But despite her terrifying power, the Manananggal has a fatal flaw, a vulnerability that turns her hunt into a high-stakes game of time. She can only survive as a severed entity during the night. She must rejoin her lower half before the sun rises. If the sunlight touches her while she is still separated, she will be destroyed. This mechanic gives the villagers a way to fight back, but it requires nerves of steel. If you suspect a Manananggal is hunting in your village, you must find where she hid her lower body. While she is away flying, you must locate the standing legs. You cannot kill the legs, but you can desecrate them. You must cover the exposed flesh of the severed waist with salt, crushed garlic, or ash. This act burns the flesh and prevents the magical reaction. When the Manananggal returns from her feast, desperate to reconnect before dawn, she finds her lower half unbearable to touch. She cannot rejoin. She will circle above, screaming and weeping in agony, trying desperately to clean the salt away, but it is futile. As the first rays of the sun hit the horizon, the monster burns, trapped by her own unnatural biology. The Manananggal is a masterpiece of body horror. It turns the human body against itself. It takes the image of a beautiful woman and literally tears it apart to reveal the ugliness inside. It teaches us that evil does not always look like a beast. Sometimes, evil wears a pretty face during the day, only to shed its skin and its legs when the darkness falls. As we conclude our look at the horrors of the flesh, we prepare to enter the final phase of our journey. We have seen monsters that hunt us, trick us, and eat us. But now, we face the monsters that threaten something far more valuable than our bodies. We face the monsters that threaten our souls. The unknowable is waiting. We leave the humid jungles of Southeast Asia and return to the cool, mist-covered hills of Northern Europe, specifically to Ireland, a land of emerald green fields, ancient stone circles, and a folklore that is obsessed with the concept of fate. Thanks to Washington Irving's famous story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, De Mache of a Headless Horseman has become a staple of Halloween cartoons and movies. We think of him as a ghost of a soldier who lost his head in battle, searching for it in the night. But the original Irish legend is not a ghost story. It is something far older, far stranger, and infinitely more terrifying. It is the legend of the Dole. The Dullahan, pronounced Dullahan, is a type of unseelie feria member of the Dark Court of the Fae. He is not a dead man. He is a headless entity that has existed for centuries. And unlike the American version, he does not ride a horse simply to scare travelers. He rides to collect souls. The visual description of the Dullahan is pure Gothic horror. He is a rider dressed in black, mounted on a massive black stallion that snorts sparks and flames from its nostrils. But where his head should be, there is nothing but a ragged, bloody stump. He does not carry a pumpkin. He carries his own severed head, held high in his right hand, like a lantern. This head is not dead. It is alive. Its texture is described as resembling moldy cheese or stale dough. The eyes are small, black, and dart back and forth like flies, constantly scanning the countryside. The mouth is split in a hideous, ear-to-ear grin of rictus joy. Because the head is held high, the Dullahan can see 4 miles across the dark fields, spotting the house of a dying person even in the pitch black of a new moon. But the most disturbing detail of the Dullahan is his weapon. He carries a whip, but this is not made of leather. It is a long, flexible human spine vertebrae still attached, bleached white, which he cracks in the air with a sound like thunder to clear the road. Sometimes, the Dullahan does not ride alone. He drives a carriage known as the Koist Bodhar, the death coach. This vehicle is an abomination of construction. Legends say the spokes of the wheels are made from human thigh bones, and the covering of the coach is made from dried human skin or wormaton shrouds taken from graves. The coach moves silently, but you can feel it coming by the sudden drop in temperature and the smell of raw earth. The horror of the Dullahan is that he is an unstoppable force of nature. In folklore, you cannot hide from him if he is coming for you. No gate, no door, and no luck can stop him. When the Dullahan approaches a gate, it flies open of its own accord. He does not stop to chat, he does not stop to fight. He only stops for one reason: to announce a death. The legend says that the Dullahan rides fast through the night until he reaches a specific house. Then he pulls back on the reins. His black horse rears up and comes to a dead halt. The silence that follows is deafening. The Dullahan lifts his severed head high, and the head speaks one single word: a name. The moment that name is spoken, the person inside the house dies. Their soul is drawn out, leaving the body instantly. It is not a battle. It is a transaction. If you are unfortunate enough to be on the road and see the Dullahan, do not look at him. He hates being watched while on his errand. If he catches you staring, he might lash out with his spine whip to blind you in one eye. Or worse, throw a basin of blood on you, a mark. That means you will be the next to die. However, despite his terrifying power, the Dullahan has an irrational fear. Like many creatures of the Fae, he is terrified of gold. Not silver, not iron, but gold. A simple gold coin, a gold ring, or even a gold pin can drive him back. If you throw a piece of gold onto the road in front of him, he will stop, roar in frustration, and vanish into the darkness. The Dullahan is the embodiment of the inevitability of death. He reminds us that death is not a random accident. It is an appointment. He is the rider who never misses his stop, the courier who always delivers his message. And in the quiet of the Irish countryside, when the wind howls and the branches tap against the window, the old folks still say, "Don't look out, the coach is passing." We have traveled the world, facing monsters that hide in forests, lurk beneath the waves, and hunger for human flesh. We have armed ourselves with iron, fire, and salt to keep them at bay. But as we enter the final phase of our journey, we must confront a terror against which there is no defense. This monster does not have claws. It does not have fangs. It does not hide in the dark. It hides in the light, wearing the one face you trust more than any other: your own. This is the legend of the doppelganger. The word comes from German folklore, literally translating to double-goer or double-walker. In modern culture, we use it casually to describe a person who looks like a harmless twin stranger. But in the 18th and 19th centuries, seeing you're a double was not a quirky coincidence. It was a death sentence. The doppelganger is not a physical creature in the traditional sense. It is an apparition, a spectral duplicate of a living person. It is indistinguishable from the original in every way. Same clothes, same hair, same scars, same voice. But it is not a reflection. It has mass. It casts a shadow. And worst of all, it has its own agenda. The horror of the doppelganger lies in the violation of the self. We navigate the world with the fundamental belief that we are unique. I am me. The existence of a second me destroys that certainty. It triggers a primal, existential dread known as the uncanny, the feeling that something is familiar yet terribly, terribly wrong. Folklore states that there are 3 ways a doppelganger manifests, and each is more terrifying than the last. The first is the fetch. This is when a friend or family member sees you in a place you couldn't possibly be. They might see you walking into a room, sitting in your favorite chair, or standing by a window. But when they speak to you, the figure vanishes. Or worse, they find the real you miles away, completely unaware. In Irish and Scottish traditions, this is a distinct omen. If the double is seen in the morning, it means long life. But if it is seen in the evening, it means the person will die before the year is out. The second manifestation is personal. You are walking down a busy street, or perhaps looking into a mirror in a dimly lit room, and suddenly you see yourself. Not a reflection, but you, standing there, looking back at you with a calm, knowing expression. This phenomenon has terrified some of the most powerful people in history. Queen Elizabeth I of England reportedly saw her own doppelganger lying on her deathbed, pale and shriveled, just days before she actually died. The poet Percy B. Shelley saw his double point toward the Mediterranean Sea shortly before he drowned in a sailing accident. Even Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, claimed to have seen a vision in the mirror just after his election in 1860. He saw two faces, one full of life and one ghostly pale. His wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, interpreted this as a sign that he would be elected to a second term, the healthy face, but would not survive it. The pale face, history proved her right. The third and most disturbing manifestation is the malicious double. In some German tales, the doppelganger is not just an omen. It is a saboteur. It actively tries to ruin your life. It speaks to your friends, spreads lies, or commits crimes while wearing your face. It is a parasite that slowly replaces the host. It suggests that there is a version of you that is better at being you than you are, a version that doesn't need sleep, doesn't feel guilt, and is waiting for you to slip up so it can take over permanently. Psychologically, the doppelganger represents the fear of insanity. It is the fragmentation of the mind. It asks the terrifying question, if I am standing here and I see myself standing over there, which one of us is the real me? And what happens if the other one decides that I am the fake? In the end, the doppelganger proves that the most terrifying monster is not a beast with horns or a ghost in a sheet. The most terrifying monster is the stranger who stares back at you from the glass every morning, miming your movements, waiting for the moment you blink so it can stop pretending. We return to the mist-shrouded islands of Japan, a land where the spirit world and the human world are separated by a paper-thin veil. We have already met the jikininki, the ghost that eats the dead, but now we face a creature that prefers its meals warm, breathing, and hopelessly in love. This is the legend of the jorogumo. In Japanese, the name jorogumo can be translated in a few ways. Literally, it means binding bride or entangling woman. But biologically, it refers to the golden orb weaver spider, a real, colorful arachnid found across Japan. In folklore, however, when a spider lives for 400 years, it gains magical powers. It grows to the size of a bull, develops a taste for human flesh, and learns the terrifying art of shapeshifting. The jorogumo is the ultimate femme. Unlike the brutish redcap or the mindless Wendigo, she is an artist. She is intelligent, patient, and sophisticated. Imagine a young samurai or a weary traveler walking through a bamboo forest near a waterfall. He hears the delicate, plucking sounds of a biwa, traditional Japanese lute. Following the music, he finds a lonely hut. Inside sits a woman of breathtaking beauty. She is dressed in a stunning, intricate kimono, her hair perfectly arranged, her skin like porcelain. She invites him in for tea, smiling shyly. She plays music for him, soothing his weary soul. He is enchanted. He thinks he has found a hidden princess or a lonely noblewoman. He relaxes. He might even lay his head in her lap as she continues to play. But if he were to look closely at the shadow she casts on the wall, he wouldn't see a woman. He would see 8 long, twitching legs. The horror of the jorogumo is the trap. She does not attack immediately. She binds you slowly. While the man is distracted by her beauty or her music, she begins to release invisible, silk-thin threads from her wrists or her mouth. She weaves them around his ankles, his wrists, and his neck. The victim feels nothing perhaps, just a light tickle, like a stray hair. By the time he realizes he cannot move, it is already too late. The transformation is instantaneous and gruesome. The beautiful woman's jaw unhinges to reveal venom-dripping fangs. Her kimono tears open as massive. Hairy spider legs burst from her back. She is no longer the bride. She is the predator. There is a famous legend from the Izu province involving the Joran Falls. A local woodcutter accidentally dropped his favorite axe into the deep pool at the base of the waterfall. He dove in to retrieve it, and a beautiful woman appeared, handing him the axe. She made him promise never to tell anyone what he saw. For years, he kept the secret, but one night, drunk at a wedding, he boasted about the beautiful woman at the falls. The next morning, he was gone. His body was never found, but a single, thick spider thread was found wrapped around the stump where he had been sitting. But the jorogumo is not just a monster of the wild. In some terrifying urban legends from the Edo period, she invades the city. She poses as a young mother holding a baby, asking a passing samurai to hold her child for a moment while she uses the restroom. The samurai, being honorable, agrees, but the moment the woman leaves, the baby becomes incredibly heavy. It gets heavier and heavier until it crushes the samurai into the ground. It wasn't a baby at all. It was a cluster of thousands of spider eggs, hatched by the mother's magic to pin the prey down until she could return to feed. The jorogumo represents the fear of entrapment. She taps into the anxiety that beauty can be a weapon. The golden orb-weaver spider in real life spins a web that shines like gold in the sunlight to attract insects. The jorogumo does the same with men. She shines, she sings, and she comforts. But beneath the silk and the makeup lies a cold, alien intelligence that sees human beings as nothing more than flies caught in a web, waiting to be wrapped up and stored for winter. As we move closer to the end of our journey, we must leave the physical monsters behind entirely. The final terrors are not things that can be fought with swords or fire. They are spirits that invade the one place we cannot protect, our own body. We leave the physical dangers of the Japanese forests and travel to the shtetls, small villages of Eastern Europe. Here, among the cobblestone streets and flickering candlelight of the synagogue, lies a terror that is purely spiritual. In most horror movies, possession is the work of a demona fallen angel, or an ancient evil entity like Pazuzu or Legion. But in Jewish folklore, specifically within the mysticism of Kabbalah, the entity that takes over a human body is far more tragic and complex. It is not a demon from hell. It is a person. This is the legend of the The word dabuk comes from the Hebrew verb dabak, which means to adhere or to cling. And that is exactly what this entity is. A dibuk is the dislocated soul of a dead person. But not just any dead person. It is the soul of someone who, in life, committed sins so great that they are barred from entering Gehenna hell to be cleansed. Yet they are certainly not worthy of Gan Eden heaven. They are trapped in a spiritual limbo, wandering the earth, hounded by damaging angels. In their desperation to escape this torment, they look for a hiding place. And the best hiding place is the body of a living human being. The horror of the dibuk is that it is a parasitic invasion of the self. Unlike the Wendigo or the Mananangel, which destroyed the body, the dibuk hijacks the personality. It usually targets someone who is emotionally or spiritually vulnerable, bride on her wedding day who is having second thoughts, a person consumed by grief, or someone who has committed a secret sin. The soul slips inside. The symptoms of a dibuk possession are terrifyingly subtle at first. The victim does not spin their head around or vomit green slime. Instead, they begin to change. A kind man might suddenly become cruel. A young woman might speak with the deep, gravelly voice of a dead man. They might reveal secrets about the neighbors that they could unpossibly know, secrets that only the dead would remember. They are not insane. They are crowded. There are two souls fighting for control of one body. The most famous play in Jewish theater, The Dibuk by Esansky, tells the story of a young bride possessed by the spirit of her dead lover who died of a broken heart. He clings to her not out of malice, but out of a desperate, twisted love. He refuses to leave because being inside her is the only peace he has ever known. But a dibuk cannot stay. The presence of the dead spirit slowly kills the host, draining their vitality like a spiritual battery. To remove a dybbuk requires a terrifying ritual. It is not like a Catholic exorcism with splashing holy water. It is a legal proceeding. A rabbinical court, a beit chin of 10 men a minyan is assembled, usually led by a miracle-working rabbi or a Baal Shem. The ritual is dramatic and dangerous. The rabbi interviews the spirit. He asks who it is, it is Era, and what sin it committed. The dybbuk will often argue, scream, or weep through the victim's mouth. The rabbi then blows the shofar, the ram's horn trumpet, used on high holy days. The piercing, shattering sound of the shofar is said to break the spirit's grip on the soul. Black candles are lit. Prayers for the dead are recited. And finally, the rabbi commands the spirit to levujli through the small toe, so as not to damage the victim's throat or heart on the way out. But the exit is violent. A window in the room must be left open, and often a pane of glass will shatter spontaneously as the spirit flees into the night. The legend of the dybbuk taps into our deepest fears about unfinished business. It suggests that death is not the end of desire, anger, or guilt. It tells us that the past is never truly gone. It is wandering the earth, looking for a way back, and if we leave the door to our soul, even slightly ajar through sin, doubt or despair, something cold and desperate might just slip inside to finish what it started. As the shattered glass settles on the floor and the shofar falls silent, we are left with one final question. We have explored monsters of the land, the sea, the mind, and the spirit. But why? Why do we tell these stories at all? In our final episode, we will look into the mirror one last time to understand the true purpose of the monster. We have reached the end of our journey. We have traveled from the frozen tundra of the Arctic to the steaming jungles of the Philippines. We have stood in the shadow of the Scottish castles and peered into the dark waters of the Australian outback. We have met the Nuckelavee, the skinless horseman who breathes plague. We have felt the crushing weight of the ALP on our chests in the dead of night. We have heard the seductive song of the huldra and the bone-chilling scream of the bunya. But now, as we step back into the light, we are left with one final, haunting question. Why? Why did our ancestors, people who were already struggling to survive against disease, war, and starvation, feel the need to invent these nightmares? Why populate a world that was already dangerous with imaginary things that want to eat our souls? The answer is simple, yet profound. We did not create monsters to scare us. We created monsters to save us. Every creature we have discussed in this series is not just a ghost story. It is a piece of ancient survival technology. The kalupalak was not invented to torment children. It was invented to keep them off the thin ice so they wouldn't drown. The Wendigo was not a campfire tale. It was a desperate social law against greed and cannibalism during the brutal winters of the North. The domovoi was a way to enforce hygiene and respect within the home when disease was misunderstood. Monsters are the guardians of the boundaries. They stand at the edge of the firelight and say, "Do not go past this point." They are the psychological fences that kept early humans alive in a world they did not understand. But they serve another purpose, one that is perhaps even more important. They give a face to the formless. Fear is the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind. But fear without a name is paralyzing. It is just anxiety. When a child dies of a sudden fever, or a storm destroys a village, or a man goes mad in the woods, that is chaos. It is random, cruel, and meaningless. The human mind cannot handle meaninglessness. So, we gave the chaos a face. We gave the fever the face of a demon. We gave the storm the face of a dragon. We gave the madness the face of a dog. By naming the fear, by giving it claws and teeth and rules like salt, iron, or running water, we gained power over it. If the monster has a rule, it can be beaten. If the vampire can't enter without an invitation, we are safe inside. If the redcap can be driven back by scripture, we have a weapon. Monsters allow us to fight back against the darkness of the universe. As we look at the modern world, we might think we have outgrown these myths. We have electric lights to banish the shadows. We have science to explain the thunder. But have we really killed the monsters? Or have they just changed their shape? Today, we fear viruses, nuclear war, artificial intelligence, and climate collapse. The names have changed, but the feeling is exactly the same. The Nuckelavee has become radiation. The Wendigo has become corporate greed. The doppelganger has become identity theft and deepfakes. We will always need monsters. They are the mirror of our humanity. They show us our weaknesses, our sins, and our deepest terrors. But they also show us our courage, because you cannot be brave unless there is something to be afraid of. So, the next time you hear a creak in the floorboards at night, or feel a cold breeze on your neck when the windows are closed, don't ignore it. Respect Italiano. It is just the old world, reminding you that you are still human, you are still alive, and there is still magic dark and terrible waiting in the shadows. This concludes our deep dive into the terrifying folklore monsters no one talks about. I've explored 16 of the darkest corners of human mythology, but the world is full of thousands more. If you survived this journey with us, I have a question for you. Which monster from this series actually scared you the most? Was it the psychological horror of the doppelganger, or the visceral gore of the man? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this series and want to see more content on dark history, mythology, and the macabre, please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm find other brave souls like you. And most importantly, subscribe and ring the bell. We are already researching our next series, and trust me, you do not want to be left alone in the dark when it drops. Until then, keep your doors locked and check under your bed.